Okay, so this video is the tape. This is the part that's really fun, and it's hard, but not that hard. So get your tape, unwrap it, and then start peeling off a little bit. What you're going to do is you're going to be blocking out areas of your design so you can paint a straight line. Now, you have to decide where you're going to start. I'm going to start one color. I highly recommend you paint one color at a time. Paint all that color, be done with it, let it dry, and then paint the next color. I think I'm going to start with yellow. So, I know that I have yellow, yellow. Oh no, I've decided I'm going to do white here. Okay, I'm going to do white here. So I'm going to do yellow here and yellow here. So I only have two yellows. Ooh, I don't know if I like that. I think I will keep this yellow in here. So I'm going to do this one white, but I'm going to keep the yellow. So I have yellow, yellow, yellow. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel off a piece of tape. Now you might want to put a piece of paper or something, newspaper underneath here. Don't want to get tape on a nice table. So this one, I'm just going to lay that tape right on the line that I've created. Then I'm going to do this. Now, I may not be matching up that line perfectly, but that is okay. I'm totally going to leave it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fold that tape over. So always choose your tape that's longer if it goes over the edges. So there's my first tape, and then I'm going to take my finger. I'm just going to kind of push it down a little, not too hard. This is called burnishing the tape. Helps it stick so the paint doesn't seep underneath. So just use your fingernail, or you can use the scissors. Okay, so that's the first piece. The second piece, the second yellow, whoa, there we go. Oh, make sure that it aligns with your design or you mess up. The second yellow is this one, so I'm going to tape off that. Okay, so peeling it off, a little bit bigger than what I need. If you've never done this before, it's so fun. I love painting with painter's tape. Okay, so now I've got that. I'm only going to burnish it right there along the edge because this is the piece I want yellow. Now I'm going to take that and that. So basically, you're prepping your surface to create the shape. Now you might need to cut with scissors. Like if I needed to paint this yellow, I might need to cut that one. But right now I think I've done a pretty good job of picking my shapes first. Okay, now they're easier to paint. So then I'm going to take that. And this is kind of long, so I'm going to cut that one off and use this for another place down here. So I'm going to do that. Now if you want to tape it off first and then burnish it after, that's totally fine too. Okay, so then I'm going to tape off this here and then put another one. Whoa, that piece didn't come off, but you know, that's okay. I can still use it. It's just, sometimes that happens with the tape. I'm not very good with my fingers anymore. That's what it is. Okay, so there we go. I've got yellow, yellow, yellow. I have 3 yellows. Okay, so the next video will be painting those shapes, okay? Okay, this video is preparing yourself for painting. It's super important that you get ready. You'll need your painting palette. You don't have to use this, by the way. If you want to use a tray or something, you're welcome to. I have this tray that I use for watercolor, and I just paint. I mix the paints right on the tray, but I'm using what you have because I have the same supplies. I'm going to actually cut my palette paper into a half piece because I don't need to use all of it today. I don't know if I need my scissors. I'm going to take this palette paper, I'm going to set it somewhere. Clean up your space, okay? Then you need to decide how you're going to work. You need something underneath here, like some newspaper, or, you know, if you want to use the back of your large canvas, because you have one of these, you can actually attach or use this as a surface. It doesn't matter if paint gets on the back of this, that doesn't matter one bit. So you could use that if you'd like, or put some newspaper underneath. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a piece of paper. Oh, that's distracting colors. I'm going to put a piece of paper underneath, so a piece of paper works fine. All right. Now I've got my canvas. I'm ready to go. I know I'm painting this one, and this one, and I'm using yellow. So you need to get your yellow out. When you open it up, it doesn't have a thing on it. There's no sealant. It's right there ready to go. So be ready for that. I have my brushes. Everybody has these brushes. these 4. And some of you from last semester have watercolor brushes. And then I think I threw one of these in for everybody. I didn't have a whole bunch, but you've got lots of brushes to choose. So you need to choose the brush size for the painting job. So I would say this one would work. I could get it done pretty quick. I could use a smaller one too if I wanted, but I think I'll go with this one. Alright, you'll need to get your water and just a little bit of water in there. If you haven't used these brushes before, go ahead and clean the brushes. Never tap your brush like this because it splatters. Always clean in the bottom carefully, and then use the side like this to get the water out. And then I have a towel that I use, and I just clean it off. Okay. Definitely wear an apron or something because you could get paint on you. And it doesn't come out once it dries. That's it. Does not come out of your clothes very well. So wear old clothes or an apron or something like that. You're going to need your tape. So once you have your area situated, you're going to need a place where you're mixing your paint. You need to see what your planning is. You need to see your painting. However it works for you is fine. I highly recommend that you tape down your palette paper, okay? And that just helps. It doesn't move all over the place. Don't tape this to someone's nice table. I don't want to hear that from anybody like parents going, oh, my nice new table. No. Use the canvas that I give you, the big canvas. We're going to paint with that later. Use that. Just tape it down to a surface, a newspaper, an old magazine that nobody needs. Doesn't matter. Just make sure that it's not directly on the table, okay? So I've got my setup. This is how I'm going to work today. You can't really see my planning, but I can. Now I'm going to take my paint and I'm going to squeeze a little bit of paint onto the paint palette. If you're mixing paints and you've never mixed paints before, I will be making another video about mixing paints. But if you're painting right from the tube, totally fine. I have my towel like on my lap and I'm doing this. My brush is just a little bit damp. Make sure it's just a tiny bit damp. You shouldn't have any water. No water should be squeezed out of it. So your paint should be ready to paint right out of the tube. It's new stuff, so it's not going to be old and clumpy. If it is old and clumpy, you may have to get your palette knife out and you may have to just kind of move it around. Okay, so get your paint and start to paint. You want to move it around like this though. You want to get a little bit of an even coat. This is called loading your brush. Load your brush with paint, but not too much, okay? Don't go crazy. I never start here if I'm right-handed and or never start up here and paint and my hand goes across it. I always start in a place where I'm going to work left to right. If you're left-handed, you'll want to work right to left, unless you move your canvas. So, well, it doesn't really matter. So I'll just get going. So, hold your canvas with your other hand while you're painting and just get that first coat on of paint. You decide how many coats of paint you're going to need, and you can decide if you want to add some texture to it. You want to have like rough surface of paint or smooth, and while you're at it, paint your edges, okay? Because you want your edges to be painted. And this is why you have a paper underneath, because you're going to get paint on stuff. So just piece of paper, newspaper, whatever. Okay, smooth it out if you want. I'm going to have a smooth finish on mine, and then I'm going to paint my next one. I'm going to paint this one. It doesn't matter if it gets on the paint or on the tape. Just, you don't want it to go underneath the tape. Oh, and by the way, sometimes your pencil lines get picked up with the paint on the first coat. You'll be doing more than one coat. Unless you want it to be super thin, which is a choice. When you rotate it, try to rotate your whole paper. Makes it easier. And the paint dries fast, by the way. This acrylic paint dries very quickly. So try to get an even coat on if you can. Smooth it over. Try not to get a bunch of chunks on the paint because you're going to be removing, on the paint, I can't talk, on the tape. You're going to be removing that tape when you're done. Okay, I'm going to hold the corner while I paint this one. Alright, you get the idea, right? Okay, so I'm going to finish this one, and the next video will be, this is going to, second coat, do 2 coats or 3 coats, okay? So I don't need to make a video about that, you get it. Do as many coats as you want, and then let it completely dry. It'll take maybe 20 minutes, sometimes it'll take longer. If you want to use a hair dryer, you can use a hair dryer on it. It's fine, it's non-toxic paint, it's okay to do that. Just don't touch it to the paint and don't get it too close because it'll heat the surface of the paint. Do as many coats as you like until you have the quality of surface that you are interested in. And the next video will be pulling off the tape. Alright, thanks for watching. Okay, I'm putting on my second coat. There's a couple of tips I have for you. One, make sure you don't leave the paint on your brush for a long period of time because it'll dry on your brush and it's really hard or impossible to get off. You have to soak them forever. Two, change your paper often. Just get some old newspaper if you can, or scrap paper. That helps because if you paint your edges and then you set it down, it gets paint on there. I used a hairdryer to dry mine and it was pretty fast, but I noticed that there's some clumps on my paint, which I don't mind so much, but if you do mind, you may need to get a little bit of water, rinse it off, and go over that with water. But remember, if you put too much water on, it's going to seep underneath. It's okay if this has texture too, by the way. It's fine if your paint has a little bit of texture to it. Yellow often will be very translucent, which means you can sort of see through it, so keep that in mind. You may have to have more than a few coats of it. I'm glad I started with the yellow. Okay, also in between, make sure you clean your brush. So move it around in the water really carefully. You'll need to change your water often, so make sure you have time for that. And then never do this over your paint, always do it to the side. Clean off your brush really well so the paint doesn't dry on it. Okay, then use your towel. Whoa, almost got paint on my shirt. I do have my apron on though, which is great. Always lay your brush flat to dry. Don't ever leave it in the water unless you have to soak it. This might dry out if you have to sit for a long period of time, but there you go. Those are some hints. My next video will be pulling off the tape. Okay, I've got my second and third coat on. I used the hairdryer. It's a little bit sticky in here, but I'm going to go ahead and pull off the tape. So, I'm going to roll up my sleeves here. Okay, so first of all, find a corner, and then super carefully and very slowly hold on to your canvas where it's not painted, and slowly peel off the tape. And some of you are going to find this very satisfying. When you get to the edge, what you can do is just very carefully peel that off. There we go. And I always have a garbage can right next to me, or a bag. Put it in the garbage. Get yourself a little plastic bag or paper bag. I usually use a paper bag and I use it over and over. And put your tape right in there. Unless you really want to reuse it, go ahead. Alright, this one is on top, so I need to go for that one next. Okay. This one might pull a little bit. It's a little gooey around the edge. That's totally fine. Okay, so there's that one in the garbage. And so that's your next step. After it's dry, you're going to pull off your tape all around everything. Nice and easy. It's going to hopefully give you a nice clean edge. If you don't get those nice clean edges, it's probably because you either put too much paint on, it's too thick, or the paint didn't dry. Okay? Turn it over often carefully to pull those edges. Just take your time. And this one's going to be tricky because there's two edges. Nice and slow. Oh, how fun is this? Okay? Awesome. Okay, so the next video will be putting down tape to do your next color. Okay, so I got my tape off. It looks really cool. I'm really happy with it. I did have a lot of extra paint, so I squeezed out too much. I think it's because I was thinking I was going to do that one. I would have probably had more anyway. So I just, in my sketchbook, I just paint. Sometimes I go to like another page in my sketchbook, or I get another paper out or a canvas and I just paint the color on, and I might use that for something else later. If you have a tiny little container, you can save your paint. You can scrape it up and you can put it in a container with a lid. I have some little containers I use all the time for that kind of stuff. So it's up to you. If you don't want to waste the paint, then you can also get a plastic bag and open up a little tiny snack plastic bag, put it inside the plastic bag, squeeze it down and get all the air out, and it will save it for next time. But if it's a little bit of paint, it's just a little bit of paint. I mean, you have a whole tube, okay? So next one, I'm going to do blue. So I've got my blue paint ready to go. I've got my tape. Now this has to be dry. Please don't put tape down on anything that's wet. So what you're going to do is look at your planning and say, okay, where's my next color? I chose blue because, well, actually, you know what? I take that back. I'm going to do red instead. I'm going to do red. I don't know why I put the blue there. I changed my mind. And you can do that. And if you change your mind about things as you're going, that's fine. A good one to do actually would be the black, because the tape doesn't have to touch anything else. That would be a good one. I could mask that off, and I could mask this, and I could do the two black areas. That might be smart. But the red's a good choice too, because I could run the tape through these. I would have to trim the blue one a little, but that's okay. Or I could do this red one and this red one. Then I could take it off, put the tape down. I could do this one. So let's do the red. So I'm going to tape off the parts that I'm going to paint red next. Okay, and I'll just show you a little bit of this, and then I'll stop the video and show you what it looks like when it's done. And yeah, your tape gets stuck to itself sometimes. Honestly, that's not worth saving, so get a new one. If you're finding that it's easier for you to take the tape and lay it down before you pull it off, you can totally do that too. It's another technique that I use, like this. Then I get my scissors and I carefully cut it. You don't have to pull it all off, and some of you may find when you have large pieces of tape they get tangled up. Alright, so I'm going to tape off this red piece here. Now, one thing you could do is take the piece of tape and attach it to the table like this, and then you can cut it. I put my finger, let me move my camera here, I put my finger right here to hold it, and then from here, you can see I put all my stuff on the floor. Don't do that at home. Try to put it in a nice place. Then if I want to, I can cut the tape. If I need a straight line, that I need a piece of tape that's thinner. This one's tricky to do. You may have to do it in two pieces if you can't get it just right. Okay, so I've got this piece and that piece. I know people who do this and they cut their tape ahead of time and they just kind of like attach it to their table like that, and they have it ready. So if I have a thin piece now and I'm going to use that, sometimes it's easier to unstick it. Find the part that's the straightest. Oh, that's not a good one. That one's all messed up. I need to go with this one. It's okay. That's what it is. This is the straight edge right here. This one's the crooked one. So I could try to get that all the way. If it doesn't fit, then it's okay. I can attach that. Then I can use the good part of the other one. So what I'm trying to say is matching little pieces. You just overlap the tape on top of what you already have. Totally fine. And a lot of people, once you get the hang of this, it goes really fast. You can just start laying your tape down like this. Okay? Don't forget to burnish that a little bit when you're done. Now, this one, let's see. This is the red. Oh, I'm going to have to cover up this red one here because I don't have a piece skinny enough. I'll come back and paint that one later. Okay, so I'm going to tape the rest and then I'll show you the next part. Okay, I have these shapes taped off. There's one I couldn't get to because I couldn't quite cut the tape good enough, and then I'd already overlaid these pieces on top, so it's okay. You know what? I may actually not do that one. I may just keep that one blue. And so honestly, that's how your design changes. You may go, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm just going to go with blue, or maybe keep it white. So fine. It's what it is. Okay, make sure you clean your brush out really well. It will stain the first time you use it. It's fine. Clean up your space before you start painting, and then start painting. I'm going to move my scissors so I don't paint those. Move my sketchbook away. Okay, I've got my red, making sure I'm doing the right color, and I'm going to go ahead and start painting. Now, keep in mind that you need to move your paint a little bit before you start painting, and then try not to get too much paint like over the edges of your tape. I know this piece of tape's kind of thin. I might regret that later. We'll see. So I'm going to be really careful when I'm painting that. You can use the whole width of the tape if you want. Okay, if you do have little areas and they're just too delicate for you to get in and paint or cut tape to create it, save those for the very last detail part, and then you can add those, like, you know, freehand them or something like that. Okay, so here goes my first coat. I'm going to do a couple of coats of this, and then I'm going to peel it off. Then I'm going to add my blue or my black. So I think you get the basic idea of how this works. Just make sure that you let it dry in between. Use that hair dryer if you have it. A suggestion about the hair dryer, keep it away from the space you're working, because you don't want to use the hair dryer next to the paint that you might be using. It'll dry it out. You don't want that. So, you know, take it to the other side of the room or outside or whatever you need. If you don't have a hair dryer, then that's okay. It's going to take you a little bit of time. You just go get yourself a snack, go get a drink, go take a nice walk, whatever you need, or do some homework, or plan your next project. Go talk to a friend, play a video game while you're waiting. This is something you can work on, come back to, work on, come back to. I want you to think about this as fun, kind of like a little mental art therapy for you. Utilize your class afternoon time to work on as much as you can. Alright, so the next video will probably be the last painting section and me pulling off the tape and being done. Yay! Alright.